And a good Monday afternoon to you. It would help if I had the our faces up on the screen, Claibs, and then people can see who's actually trying to talk to him and hear us as well. It's Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. I'm Joe Roderick. He is Mike Claiborne. Claibs, what's going on? How'd the weekend treat you?
It was a busy weekend. The homecoming of Craig Berube. Spent some time with him. Saw Brendan Shanahan, who I had not seen in a while, who's the president of the Maple Leafs. Went to the Blues game on Saturday night. It was a very entertaining game. Now we learned that Broberg is going to be out for a while, but it was busy yesterday. I'm packing, man. I'm out of here this week, so I'm trying to get that life together. So it's all good though. Watched some interesting football yesterday. Some interesting college football on Saturday. And now we're starting to see teams separate themselves a little bit as far as who's really good and who isn't. And this is a fun time of the year for me.
Yeah, college football. The past 2 weeks, I think a lot of teams have shown their true colors. I
Mm-hmm.
still think that the jury is still out on a few of them, but for all of the love that we had for Illinois these first few weeks of the year, thinking maybe they could be something special, I think they showed us who they are these past 2 weeks.
Yeah, and you know what? I guess you make a good point because you kind of felt like the schedule was going to work out for them, and we learned that Michigan isn't as good as we thought they were going to be, and the other teams they haven't been close. I mean, the Minnesota game they lost in the last few seconds, but the other loss that they have was not even close. Although they're playing the number one team in the country, I'm going to still give them a little bit more time because. I'm not sold on Indiana, to be honest with you. And I know they're undefeated,
Yeah.
but I'm not sold. And so I'm going to wait and see how things shake out as far as their schedule is concerned.
Well, tomorrow night is a big night, Claibs, in the states of Indiana, Georgia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, um, because the college football playoff rankings come out for
Yeah.
the time, and that's what all eyes are going to be on in those states and many others to see what happens in those. Right now, I mean, I was I had to laugh yesterday because the AP polls come out, and I know you have talked about how much you dislike and don't really credit anything that comes up on the AP polls. But
It's just
Mizzou,
too early. It's
yeah,
just
but
too early.
Mizzou was what,
They dropped.
22nd? They
Now they're
dropped out.
23rd.
I
Yeah.
mean, was somebody watching their practices last week and thought, nah, this ain't a top 25 team anymore. We're taking them off the list. They didn't
Well,
play a game and they dropped three more
I know.
spots.
I think that the luster has worn off the Missouri Star as far as these voters are concerned. Um, and I think because of the manner that they lost their two games, people don't take them serious. This offense has not come around like I think everybody thought it was going to at the beginning of the year. So they're kind of like in a rut right now. And I don't know what they can do to climb out of it. Obviously, they need to win out. I mean, if they go 10-2, I think that's a good season. Now, obviously, that's not going to be good enough as we look at it now, be good enough to get them in the playoffs unless we have some real train wrecks along the way. But overall, I just think, man, we have a lot of teams that still have to prove themselves. But to drop by not even playing is just a head scratcher. But
Yeah.
here's one team that's right there on the cusp, and I know many have written them off. Beware of Alabama, man. I mean, they're 13th in the polls as we speak. Somebody's going to stub their toe between now and the SEC championship game, and I think we'll see the real Alabama at that point. But there's still a lot of moving around that's going to take place before this is all said and done.
You look at some of the schedules of some of these teams that we've mentioned coming up. A team like Indiana right now, they are sitting in a very, very good spot right
Mm-hmm.
now, and one that this is going to question a lot about what the college football the selection committee thinks about them and how future top brackets might show up, because they have Michigan and Purdue, but sandwiched between them, they are at the Horseshoe at Ohio State. Very well could go 11-1 on the season, on the regular season. And we've talked about this many times, that one loss should not take you out of the college football playoffs at the end of the season, especially if you're a team from the Big Ten.
I think it will, though. I think if you go back to last year, and we had a similar situation with Florida State, uh, I think there's going to be a team that's not going to get in this thing with one loss, and they're going to cry, cry, and cry. Because remember, they take the first, the division winners, the league champions, they are automatically in. So now it lessens your opportunity, especially if you're one of those teams that's on the outside looking in with regard to your conference. And Indiana could be one of those teams because Ohio State's going to get in. I don't know about Michigan. Oregon's going to get in. So that's two teams right there from the Big Ten. So I don't know if Indiana is going to be that other team that's going to be able to climb in this thing.
And Penn State, they still have Penn State has an easy route the rest of the way too. So
yeah, they don't have to play Ohio State anymore, so they're in good shape.
Right. And from the looks of it right now, too, as long as Oregon wins out, they don't have to play. Because this is the weird thing this year is the conferences and the conference championship games. There's no divisions right now in the Big Ten. It's just the top two.
Yeah.
They're moving on. They have yet to separate those out into separate divisions for teams like the Big Ten. So watching that and seeing how that lines up, in some cases, it might be best to miss out on those champ. I mean, because you look at a team like Indiana, if they lose to Ohio State, it could be Oregon and Ohio State in the championship game for that. And if Oregon wins that one, then Ohio State has 2 losses and Indiana has 1 loss. And yeah, Ohio State's 2 losses are both to Oregon. So how are we weighing that? Are we telling Ohio State, hey, look, you had
nice job, nice
you
try.
had 2 chances against the number 1 team and you couldn't win either one. Why should we put you in the top 12 and give you a third chance?
Hey, again, I think we're going to have a lot of hand wringing again. And I know we expanded the playoffs, but I still think we're going to have these debates. And, I don't know if college football is all that upset by it. It creates discussion. Somebody's going to end up being the 13th team, and they're going to have a reason on why they should be part of this 12. But I think give it 2 years, 3 years, they're going to blow this thing up anyway, and they'll have a little bit more of a legitimate alignment that I think we can all follow that I think will be more telling than compared to what we have now. Throw in the fact that you have to do something about your non-conference schedule. Okay. I keep harping on this. And that's one of the reasons why I don't think some of these voters take Missouri serious about their non-conference schedule. You have to toughen it up if you want to be in this debate on who the 12 teams who should be in the tournament. Yeah. Because that would be my next go-to is, all right, well, who else did you play? And if you don't have a legitimate opponent on your non-conference schedule, and my rules, it has to be a regional opponent, comparable conference, and somebody, and you have to have one blood donor. I'll give you the blood donor. And you probably have to have somebody that is a buy game where the networks want to see you play. But maybe that's where the comparable conference comes into play. So if you finish third in the SEC, then why not play the Big Ten or the Big 12's third place team?
One of the things that I am very much intrigued about when we get these rankings tomorrow night is kind of looking at, I don't know, up to number 20 or so and trying to figure out if they have a path into that top 12. Looking at, because back when it first would come out, they'd always give you the top 4 and then they would give you 5 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
And you would kind of look at that and you go, okay, you'd have those mini playoffs within the season looking at that. But now that you have 12 teams, it goes even further now to where if you come in at number 20 tomorrow night, are you looking at that? And just for example, looking at the AP top 20 right now, or top 25 right now, a team like Washington State, who doesn't have a conference, they are 7-1 right now.
They got no shot.
But but that's the thing, figuring out do I have a path there? Can I win enough games and can 4 or 5 teams lose to where I climb up and I somehow sneak into that spot?
Here's another thing that you have to take into account. While a team like Washington State, and we're using them, you want to make this thing a little bit more regionalized. So you already have Oregon. You already have, which it looks like BYU that's going to have a shot at it. So you have two teams in either in the mountains or on the West Coast. Now, obviously, you love to have USC or UCLA, but they're not good enough to be in this thing this year. So I think Washington State's going to be on the outside looking in because of Oregon, because of BYU, and Boise State. And I think they have enough of a resume that I think that they would probably override a team where you don't want to stack it because we already complain, well, there's too many SEC teams out there. Well, that's because SEC teams are pretty damn good. Now, in this situation, a team like Washington State, who doesn't have the luster that maybe some of these other schools have, is another reason why I think they'll be on the outside looking in. And, it's just going to be one of those things they just say, tough. Too bad.
How do you, right now, how do you view a team like Army? 8-0, one of the final undefeated teams in the country. How do you look at a team like an Army, one of the service academies?
That's a good question. And I probably would go back to strength of schedule with them. It's not like Army went out and played anybody tough or they have a tradition. Now, does that mean they don't deserve a look? No, they probably do. But what I would do in their situation is probably put them in a high-end bowl game if they're going to be that good.
They have Notre Dame coming up on November 23rd.
Okay.
That game is at South Bend.
So what do you if they beat Notre Dame, are you saying they flip with Notre Dame as far as the standings are concerned?
I'm saying that if they end up undefeated, if they end up what would be 12-0, they're 8-0 right now. They're at North Texas, at Notre Dame, at University of Texas San Antonio, and then the Army Navy game. If they get to 12-0 and have that win over Army, right now they're sitting at 18. I think that bumps them up into that mix.
Here's one thing you forgot to bring up, or you did mention it. They got to beat Navy, and Navy was pretty good up until a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
So I think they have a couple of tough ones on the schedule, because you can never discount when Army and Navy plays each other.
It's fun right now, though, to sit and watch a team like that because it's going to cause headaches for the committee.
It really won't, because because it's too easy to say, look who they play. And they know that if you put Army in this tournament, physically, they're not going to be able to man up against one of these teams from the SEC.
No,
or the Big
but
Ten.
Last year, you left the number 5 ranked team out that was undefeated. And you sat there and you said, you know what? They lost their quarterback. They didn't play anybody that great. We can make an argument. But now that you have 12, if team runs the table and they're 11-0, 12-0, I feel like you have to put that in. I don't think a team can win from any conference can win all their games all year and be left out.
Joe, we've seen the last of teams that run the table with legitimate schedules. As I mentioned, they have to go to Notre Dame. They got to play Navy. So there's 2 losses. I'm going to give them right there. I mean, it's great for discussion's sake. And even if they have 1 loss, I still think it's going to be hard for them to crack the 12.
Army joins Oregon, Indiana, Miami, and BYU. Those are your 5 undefeated teams left on the left in college football.
And you know what's interesting about that? I think Oregon's the only legitimate one. Because, as good as Miami appears to be, Miami hadn't played anybody, okay? And I think that's going to come back to haunt them too. And they're putting up numbers. They're putting up numbers, but they're not playing what I would deem the competitive teams at this time of the year. Okay,
that's what we said about Florida State last year, and that's why Florida State got left out.
That's why they got left out. You're absolutely right. And the same thing can happen to Miami if they don't watch it.
I think I have been guilty of this all year. I've been waiting for Miami to slip up. I've been waiting for Miami to lose a game. I've been waiting for them to fall off all year. And every game that I think you've looked at where that's a possibility, they've managed to hold on and win.
Who do they have left?
They have nobody ranked. They will end up going the whole season without playing a single ranked team.
Well, see, that's another issue that they're going to run across. But who's still left on the schedule, though?
They're at Georgia Tech, then against Wake Forest, and then at Syracuse.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if the ACC is doing if they are they Big East, AC. I don't even know what conference. Are they ACC? Miami.
Yeah, they're ACC. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know who they. I don't know who they would have. How their conference championships working. That's the one thing that I have not looked into enough is how these conference championships are working this year.
Yeah,
With some of these teams and some of these conferences.
Yeah, it's going to be again. I think college football loves the debate and the conversation. It keeps everybody focused, and everybody has a reasonable argument on why they should be where they should be. So I think it's good for the game. And again, they're going to change this up down the road where we'll have a little bit more of a definitive role. But I'm telling you, man, you can't go wrong if you schedule right. Because you always will have that to wave a flag on more than anything else. If you schedule right, that's going to get you in the door. And we see it in college basketball, same thing. I know people used to think 20 wins was a big deal, and they won 20 games. Yeah, but you ain't playing anybody. So at some point you got to just come to the realization that two things are going to happen. One, nobody's going to run the table. Okay, if you play a legitimate schedule. Two, you can get in the tournament with 2 losses. Okay, so if you play a legitimate team and you lose to them, that's okay, because you'll have more credit to your resume than a lot of schools who duck teams. And they got to do a better job at that. And networks and TV is going to make you play more competitive games too.
Well, as you mentioned that, look forward to Mizzou's 2025 schedule of Central Arkansas, Kansas, Louisiana, and UMass coming your way in 2025.
How are you going to take them serious? Okay. Now, I get the Kansas thing. That's a border state. Okay, I get it. But Kansas is barely alive when it comes to football. All right. But I appreciate that. There's no reason to be playing UMass again. All right. And who was the other one? Central Arkansas.
Central Arkansas, yeah.
Better known for Scottie Pippen than they are.
I was just going to say, yeah, Scott. Yeah, unless Scottie Pippen's there, I got no reason to watch that game.
So you got to do better.
Yeah,
you got to do. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. Why not play Indiana?
Right.
And so
they have. They have.
Here's
recently,
what you do.
Yeah,
they have. You're right. But here's what you do, and this should be throughout college football. You have that one open day, because they always say, well, we scheduled this 10 years ago. We can't get. Sure, you can. You can get out of it. So now everybody has the one open date to go out and find somebody good and play, or play somebody from a comparable conference.
Yeah.
And so that way you don't have that excuse of saying, well, we don't know. No, bro, you're going to play them. Now you flip a coin on where you play them at, or maybe you want to do a home and home. I don't know. But that gives you more credibility than putting a Central Arkansas or who knows state on your schedule. And Missouri's not the only one that does it. Okay. Let's not just pick on them, because there's some other programs that have found a way to be conveniently unavailable against good teams.
Claibs, let's take our first commercial break. When we come back, we will move to the professional side of football. Another week of NFL almost in the books. One game tonight, and we will talk about Week 9 right after this on Lunch with Claibs and Joe.
Let me get this straight. Graybar is a distributor?
Yep. For more than 150 years, we supported electrical and datacom projects all over the country.
So you can get me products wherever and whenever I need them?
Yep. Thanks to our expansive national logistics network.
For any industry?
Yep. From construction sites and industrial plants to schools, hospitals, and just about everything in between.
So you could say Graybar is much more than a distributor.
Yep, you could say that.
They really do it all.
Yep. When you need a hand powering, connecting, or maintaining your operations, join the thousands of professionals who rely on Graybar to help keep them up and running. Yep, Graybar does that.
Back here at Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. Every week here on Claibs Online, Mike Martz and Jim Thomas bring you Talking Football Thursday mornings around 11:30, and then it's available for you wherever you get your podcasts and up on YouTube all weekend long. And they break down each and every game all weekend long. Mike Martz, Coach Martz this past week, making his prediction on who the next coach of the Dallas Cowboys was going to be. So he's out there making predictions on job openings that aren't even open yet, Clay.
Well, but he's right. They're gonna have a new one. They're gonna have a new coach. I love Mike Martin. He's one of the smartest guys I know. But I think he and I were probably on the same page on that one. That's not gonna work.
No, it's not. And we saw another firing in the NFL today. Dennis Allen let go.
Some think he should have never got the job.
It is amazing that 2 weeks into the season, you would have thought the New Orleans Saints were the next greatest show on turf. The way that they ran through those first 2 games, putting up points, and now have lost 7 consecutive games.
This is, again, when I go back to my original point, man, you can't judge these teams the first month of the season because they don't know who they are. And now the cream has started to rise to the top, and teams like New Orleans, they're going to go no place fast. You look around and there's some teams that are struggling. I think people thought Jacksonville was going to be better. They're not very good. They have a good coach. They just don't have enough good players. The Giants are in that situation. I mean, there was hope for them. Everybody thought the Bears are going to be legit. What are they 4-4 now? And they're going no place fast.
No.
And there's some other teams that are out there, but the Saints are – who's in a worse situation, the Saints or the Carolina Panthers?
I mean, Carolina right now, you traded away a lot of your draft for this past year because you thought Bryce Young was your guy.
Yeah, but hold on. That's a good point you make, but you got a lot in return for the kid playing out in San. Well, he hadn't even played this year. The running back, Christian
McCaffrey. Yeah.
So you had some assets to deal with, and I hear that a lot about people. Well, they gave up a lot to. Well, but you know what? They had a lot of assets because they got a lot from the San Francisco deal. So it's almost a wash. But they've made some terrible selections in some other areas where Bryce Young, and I said this at the beginning, he didn't have anybody that can block, first of all. Right. They had no real running game. Their receivers, they got the kid from Minnesota who's been okay, but he's been hurt a lot.
I think the Saints can reset this. So I don't know how long. I mean, with a rookie quarterback now, you're not stuck with them as long as you have been in the past. You saw how quickly the Bears were willing to move on from Justin Fields to go and get Caleb Williams this past year. They really didn't give Fields much of a chance to show what he could really do. And now they think that they have whatever they need in Caleb Williams. With the Panthers, how quickly do you move on from Bryce Young? You already benched him this year for Andy Dalton, but then he plays for you again yesterday, Bryce Young. The Saints, they could easily move on from Derek Carr. You can go and you can draft a rookie quarterback down there. Maybe they missed out on doing that this past year, but there will be other options out there.
So is there a quarterback you have in mind that's going to come in and save the Saints this year?
This year?
Yeah. I mean, for next year.
Who do you think are the top quarterbacks
right now? That's what I was going to ask. That's why I'm asking you, because I don't know.
The kid from Miami.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm gonna push the pause on him because, as I talked about earlier, he ain't playing anybody.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it's kind of like, he's putting up numbers against teams that most good quarterbacks should be able to do. And I'm not saying he's a bad player, but I don't know if he's a guy that I'm taking on the first pick. At some point, some of these teams better learn that taking a quarterback in that first pick overall has not necessarily worked out as well as you think.
Right. I think outside of that, what do you think from what you've seen or what you know about Sanders' kid in Colorado?
You know what? I don't really know what he is, to be honest with you.
He's going to have the biggest hype man going into the draft.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that can have somebody to hype him, but I just don't know what he does that well that makes him that exceptional. Do you?
No.
Okay. And I'm not saying he can't play at the next level. I just don't know what he is. Is he a pocket guy? Is he an RPO guy? I don't know. Because their offense has been so up and down since he's been there. And I know that they've had some line problems, but they've had some other good players that just haven't risen to the top yet. So I don't know what kind of player he's going to be, but I know, as you mentioned, they hyping him up like he's the second coming. I just don't see it.
Let's we started talking about the Cowboys. Let's go back to the Cowboys. Claibs, we're talking about all the bad teams right now in the NFL. We haven't gotten to our power rankings or our top teams yet. Cowboys continue to be a mess, losing to the Falcons. Falcons surprisingly 6-3 on the season right now. They went out and spent the money on Kirk Cousins, so I guess this is where they expected to be. But Cowboys fall again, 3-5 now on the year. And looking forward to hearing Jerry Jones, what he has to say tomorrow when he usually speaks to the media.
Well, he did some talking yesterday about, it ain't over yet. And, we may be busy at the trade deadline. This team is a mess. And the problem that they have more than anything else kind of reminds you of the Lakers, where they're just bad enough to be on the outer portion of the top picks in the first round. They're cap restricted. They spend a lot of money on a half a dozen players, and some of these guys obviously haven't lived up to the expectation. And I don't see any relief in sight because, and also one other thing, they've had a lot of guys on defense hurt this year. Okay, when you think about Micah Parsons, Diggs came back yesterday, and he was average on his best play. And there's some other guys that they've missed. Same thing can be said for the offensive line. Zach Martin's having a terrible year, and I know they brought him back, but Zach Martin is getting worked, okay, for a lot of different ways. So this is a team that kind of grew old, and then the players that they brought in, they thought they could nickel and dime, especially in the receiving area and running back. I don't know who Cowboys are, and I don't know if anybody knows what they're going to look like in the future, no matter who the next coach is going to be. Because you have to remember, the next coach is still working for the guy upstairs. His name is Gerald Jones.
The biggest issue, and I think what Cowboys fans, what Cowboys media are going to keep coming back to again and again this year about the biggest mistake is not going after Derrick Henry, not paying Derrick Henry what it took. He just went to the highest bidder. That's all it took. And the Cowboys had the money to be the highest bidder. And you're seeing Derrick Henry week in and week out just run wild for the Ravens, while the Cowboys are throwing.
They don't have a running game.
No, I mean, Ezekiel Elliott was a healthy scratch this weekend for disciplinary reasons, and their backup's Dalvin Cook, who hasn't been relevant in about 4 years now.
Again, man, it's a mess, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. It'll cost Mike McCarthy his job, and it's probably time to move on from him anyway. And I know if you look at his resume, he's been a double-digit winner most seasons he's been there. But in the direction this team is going, it just doesn't seem like there's any relief in sight. And I think Jerry's got to act in order that he'll always have a fan base. That's not going to be a problem. But there are too many people that want somebody's head, and it looks like it's going to be Mike McCarthy.
Claibs, let's go to the good side of things this week in the NFL. NFC first. There are so many good teams in this NFC that once we get to the playoffs, once we get to that seeding and see who is 1 through 7 and kind of look at some of those matchups, I think it's going to be so difficult to figure out who has the best path to the to New Orleans in the Super Bowl. Right now, the Lions continue to impress again and again and again. 6 straight wins now, 7-1 on the year. Very easy. I mean, it's real easy right now to put them number 1 at the top, but there's still a lot of season. I mean, you still have half the season left.
Yeah, and they really haven't gotten into the meat of their schedule like they're about to. You know what was surprising? Yesterday was their first game outdoors.
I heard that. I watched the beginning of it. I was able to catch that. Yeah, like I was watching. So I watch every Sunday. I watch on Red Zone. I watch the Red Zone channel, and they're jumping around and around. But whatever part they were on, I caught that. And I sat there and I went back and I looked at their schedule because I'm like, that can't be like, surely you played somewhere along the that was outdoors to go this far into the season. That's crazy.
It is. But here is what I think.
You'd like it the other way around, by the way. That's
because
you want to start when it's nice and warm outside and then end in November and December playing all those indoor games.
Here's where I think the issue is going to be in the NFC. Who can stay healthy? Because as they get in the playoffs, man, you're going to find out just how deep you are as a team. And this is where, as coaches and front office personnel, when they pick a guy in the 4th or 5th round, by now he's got to be able to step on field and do something. Okay, he's got to be able to contribute more than special teams because somebody's going to go down, and we saw it already with Hutchinson going down. They lost one of their best players on defense yesterday. He got tossed. He got ejected in the first half, and they still found a way to have somebody else step up. And this is where player personnel, this is where they actually earn their money at this time of the year, making sure that the guy they worked out in February and the guy they drafted in April is a guy that can now step on the field and make a positive contribution in November.
Tonight it's Monday Night Football. Chiefs hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'd like to think that this is going to be a competitive game, but with the game being in Kansas City, I just there's no part of me that can give this game away to the Bucs.
Okay. Kansas City is really good defensively. Their offense is a little suspect. Now, they brought in a receiver last week, and they're still looking. They're going to even be better defensively because they made a quiet acquisition last week, bringing in the kid from New England who can give them some pass rushing ability. So they're still going to be good, but I don't think any team they play, you should think Kansas City is going to walk over because somebody's going to have their number one night. And it used to be the Raiders. And remember last year when the Raiders just walked in, just broke up all their furniture? There's a team somewhere, and I don't know who it's going to be, but somebody's going to make Kansas City's afternoon or evening very interesting. And this is a team in Tampa that can do that.
So I know I asked it last week. I imagine the same. Even though Kansas City's 7-0 right now, you still putting the Ravens over them as the best team in the AFC?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
I don't argue with that now at this point either. I mean, the Ravens once again last night had another played again, had another good game yesterday. Bills though. I'm telling you, Bills are slowly starting to make their.
They're playing well.
Yeah,
they're playing well. Now remember,
they overcame some really bad penalty calls yesterday at the start of their game too.
Here's the thing about Buffalo. First of all, they're in a crappy division. Okay, the Jets are awful. Miami, obviously losing Tua is a team trying to find their way, and New England is New England with a new coach. So they're in pretty good shape because of the conference that they're in. But I always wonder at what point is their quarterback going to give it up? And that's been like his, we don't hear enough about the bad plays that he makes that cost his football team. We always talk about him being in that MVP discussion. But man, when the game's on the line, he finds a way to give it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, Claibs, let's take our final break here. When we come back, wrap up all of our loose ends on today's show here on Claibs Online. It's the lunch show with Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick.
Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? There are quality jobs in the construction industry.
I got out of college and my career choices were very limited, and this provided me with a plan for the present and the future at the same time.
I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was making less than I make as a first-year apprentice painter.
I didn't go to college. I have no college debt. I make more money than the majority of people I know that went to college.
Take your first step towards a rewarding career. Visit stlouispdf.org.
Claibs, not much baseball to talk about today. World Series wrapped up last week. Dodgers win that 4-1. Gold Gloves announced last night. For the second time, Claibs, since 2000, the Cardinals will go back-to-back years without without having somebody win a Gold Glove. Just kind of shows the dominance they have had on defense over the last 2 decades.
Yeah. Yeah, they have, but you know what? They had guys that were finalists.
Yeah.
So it hasn't fallen off the table completely with regard to their defensive prowess. So, when you think about a kid like Mason Wynn, who's going to probably win one of these days, because he's better defensively than the other 2 shortstops in the division, and the kid over in Cincinnati, and also O'Neal Cruz, who they eventually moved to the outfield.
He's not a shortstop anymore.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. So I think he's going to be in good shape. He'll win one here down the road. The general manager meetings are taking place starting today. Well, they started yesterday informally, but today it goes on. And I'm of the belief that there are a lot of teams that are going to be looking to do business early. I think you're going to see some free agents that are going to say to their agent, I'm not going through what I saw guys go through last year. And I think this is going to be a very active year. And I bet we have a lot more business done before Christmas than we have in the past.
That'd be great. That'd be great. If anything big happens with the Cardinals, Bob Ramsey and I will come your way with a Daily Cards Live postseason edition whenever big news happens to be made. I can't remember what the name of the guy was that they signed the other day. Claims that just wasn't big enough to go live right away.
Not breaking news.
Not really. 6 ERA for a guy that was a late season starter for the Marlins last year. That's just,
that should tell you
not
something.
Moving the needle. Yeah.
But you know what though? Here's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get enough professional arms in the organization. Whether this guy makes this ball club or he finds himself in Memphis, you have to have some professional arms. And I think that's what this move is more about than saying, well, this guy could be the 5th guy in our rotation. I don't know about that, but I think they want to have more professional arms. Hey, one other thing I want to bring up. It has nothing to do with baseball. I don't know whether you saw the confrontation, Joel, and you heard about the confrontation. There's no video of it.
Yeah.
We are so quick in our business, media-wise, to come to the rescue of people who push that envelope. And Joel Embiid's issue was not about his play. And you can climb on Joel Embiid all day long, and I get it. But when you start bringing in the losses of his family, of his father and his brother, and making that part of the reason on why you're not playing well, and trying to be a wise ass about it, I think we have to really stop and think about how people cross that line a little too much with players. And we saw with Embiid, and I'm sure he'll be fine. And I think that we have to take a deep breath and say, hey, man, there's some things you probably shouldn't want to go there, because I can guarantee you, whoever the writer, I don't know the writer, but if this script was flipped, he would be in a whole lot of hurt as far as feeling why would you come after my family? Why would you say something? I just think, man, we got to think about how we present ourselves as an industry. And it just doesn't include radio or TV. It includes everybody, especially guys who are columnists who think they can say or do anything because people want to hear their opinion. And that's fine. And I can disagree with your opinion. Now, people say, well, you can't be violent about it. You can't use physical force. Well, what do you do? So I got a suggestion. Maybe the team shouldn't talk to the guy.
No, and that's this isn't the first one that's done that too. Kevin Durant came out against ESPN and Stephen A. Smith over the weekend. So he's defending himself over the constant criticism that he's been getting over the years from ESPN. So we saw that on the same on the basketball level, not physical. He didn't come at it physically, but it's a guy just standing up for himself and just saying, hey, you know what? This is enough. This isn't how to do it. This isn't how to do business. We're done with this. But from another standpoint too, the whole family thing, the Jason Kelsey issue in Penn State.
Yeah. So that guy's lucky that his phone went to the ground. Okay.
Right.
He should have went to the ground.
Right.
And I think that
Kelsey thought about that. Kelsey, he sat there and he thought, you know what, I'm doing something here. You know what? Okay, there you go. I'm only out $1,000 if I grab your phone and smash that on the ground. Okay.
I think that person was very lucky that he still is able to walk, because, there's only so much a guy should have to take. And I know when they say, well, you're a public figure, I don't give it. That doesn't give you the right to say those things and not be prepared to understand what comes with it. Okay. Freedom comes at a price. Okay. And I know people love to use, it's a free country, you can say anything. No way. Yeah, you can, but there's something that comes with that, because that was designed for the government, where you can say things. That doesn't mean Joe Roderick can say certain things to somebody else and not be in a position where he may have to pay a price he didn't think about paying.
Yeah. You're not walking out in the public and saying, yeah, you think that just because they're a public figure, you could say what you want to them.
No, bro, them days are over with.
Yeah, that guy wasn't. Yeah, he's not going to go. He wasn't going to go to a bar that night in Penn State afterwards and say that same thing to a guy out there at the bar.
Well, how about the situation with James Franklin, where this fan was like climbing all over him as he was coming out the field, and Franklin said, well, what's your name? And the guy walked away. He ran away.
The kid's gonna give it. I mean, at that moment, yeah, the kid screwed up there. He froze up. You know what? If you're gonna come out and say that, what's James Franklin gonna do to you if you tell him your name?
Yeah.
Say, yeah, my name's Joe.
Right.
Okay, what's James Franklin gonna do then?
And so Franklin would probably address him as, well, Joe, this, and that. We don't know what the next sentence would have been from Franklin, but the way this guy handled it. So again, there's a couple of things that we see. Now the athletes have the power of their voice via social media, whether it's on Twitter or whatever you want to use. They can push back a lot sooner compared to just taking what writers and people in the media say and do with and about them. And you know what? I have no problem with it. Now, when it comes to the whole physical element, I'm not advocating that a guy gets clocked every time he disagrees with somebody. But when you want to cross that line and you're begging for it, hey, be careful for what you wish for.
Claibs college basketball starts up today. SLU, Mizzou, and Illinois all in action today at various times.
You can call it that.
SLU and Santa Clara play in South Dakota today. That game starts at 2:00. Eastern Illinois is playing at Illinois in Champaign at 7:00, and then Mizzou is down in Tennessee playing Memphis. That game also at 7:00.
We wish them all the best this year.
Rank these programs for me. Rank these 3 programs for me. You got any? Have you looked into them at all yet?
Probably Illinois, and Missouri, and SLU are tied for second place. I mean, Missouri's got an interesting roster. I had a chance to talk to Dennis Gates a couple of weeks ago about it. And like, they're all trying to figure out, what do we have? Josh Schertz is going through the same thing. He's got a different looking team. They're bigger. They're a little bit more athletic. I heard something the other day, though. Somebody had the nerve to talk about Gibson Jimerson has a chance to break some school records this year. Hell, if I've been there for 8 years, if I was there for 8 years, guess what? I'd probably have some names, have my name under some shit. So let's get off this whole, because now you're talking about, I think it was like the scoring record. You mean to tell me Gibson Jimerson, it took him 7 years to break Anthony Bonner's record, and Bonner's been out of school since 90. Okay. By the way, speaking of that, congratulations to Anthony Bonner, Earl Austin Jr., Jim Jackson going into Missouri Sports Hall of Fame later this month. Couldn't happen to a better group of people. Know them all extremely well, and couldn't be happier for them. And all the rest of the ones that are going in this year. It's going to be a fun luncheon this year.
Claibs, that's going to do it for our show today. I already mentioned earlier, talking football coming your way on Thursday, possibly doing something Wednesday once those college football rankings come out as well. So a lot to look forward to here on Claibs Online this week.
I'm anxious to see who Mike Martz. I'm sure he'll have a few other names that'll be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. But I'm anxious to see what other guys do you think, by the way, before we get out, what other teams do you think are going to be looking for coaches? Now we know New Orleans is looking for one.
So who else? New Orleans already fired their coach. Who was the other one that we already had this year?
New York Jets.
The Jets fired their coach. I think it's time in the other side of New York too. I think Daboll's done, or I think they're done in New York. I think you got to change quarterback. You got to change head coach in New York for the Giants. Daniel Jones can't do it anymore.
He never could.
Yeah.
Shit. So you have Dallas, both New York teams, New Orleans.
Vegas, are you done there? Vegas just fired their offensive coordinator and their O-line coach.
Wait a minute. You just hired him.
In Vegas?
Antonio Pierce? Yeah.
But he had all last year too.
They were better last year.
I know, and they showed no improvement. They have shown no improvement this year.
Oh, Carolina, you got to think about that situation too.
Isn't he brand new too?
Well, that's right. Rules. He took over for
Rule.
Yeah. So this is his second year, I guess.
I thought this was his first year.
No, Rule's been in Nebraska for a couple of years now.
Whoever it was, no, because they fired their coach last year. Never even made it through the first year. Dave Canellis.
Oh yeah, you're right.
You're right. Is the coach this year.
Well, they have a history then. They are very short, lacking patience with their coaches.
Yeah.
So let's just say on the safe side, there's at least 4 jobs that are going to be
There's always
open.
8 jobs. Every year there's always 8 jobs.
Well, wait a minute. Let's think about that for a
The
minute.
Bears too. Bears. We're done.
Yeah. He's got to go. Yeah, I agree.
They're
going no place fast. But if you look around, as I'm looking at the teams, Arizona just hired a guy, so he'll be there. What about Sean McVay? Has he had enough?
He might walk away. I mean, he might be one that just walks away. Yeah.
I run another name, the guy in San Francisco. I mean, he can get them there, but they just can't get over the hump.
I think Shanahan gets a pass this year with not having Christian McCaffrey healthy.
Okay, good point. Very good point.
I think you get a pass this year, and you give him one more year. A lot of injuries. There have been so many injuries in San Francisco this year.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think you get a pass with that. All right. Talking football Thursday, Mike Martz, Jim Thomas at 11. Probably going to do some daily cards if there's any baseball news down at the GM meetings, and a college football show later this week as well. Lots of stuff coming your way here on Claibs Online. He's Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. Talk to you next time right here.
From our roots in St. Louis, Royal Banks of Missouri is branching out to continue serving you with our locations in St. Charles, Jerseyville, Granite City, and now in Hannibal, Center, and New London. Royal Banks of Missouri, the community bank in your community.